Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Geek and Speak, the Geek and Seek podcast. Kind of got a little stutter going on just then. Today, I'm your host, Jason. Morgan's feeling a little under the weather, so I'm going to be taking over for this episode. And today, we're going to be talking about cards that get you killed. Just cards that we think a lot of people play, and they get you killed one way or another, whether it's the card themselves or the repercussions of playing such a card. Joined with me today is Morgan, our usual host. Morgan, how you doing, buddy? Not too good?
Yeah, having kids makes you get sick a lot more often. So thanks for letting me preserve my voice a little bit. I'm happy to get sick now instead of in a week or so when we have to leave for Vegas. So get it out of the way now, right?
Well, just lay down in the back seat, boo. I'll get us there safely.
All right, cool.
And also joined with us today is Preston. Preston, how are you doing, fella?
I'm doing all right. You know, I'm not currently sick like Morgan, so I can't really complain about too much.
Yeah, well, respect, and I'm glad that you're doing good today as well. I'm not bad, and I'm actually pretty excited to talk about this topic because I have some very strong opinions about some of these cards that we got on this list, and I'm just ready to just let all of the anger out. Just let it go. It's good for you. Just kind of get it out every once in a while. Also want to say before we get into this, make sure that you buy a plane ticket to Las Vegas, get, your pass together for MagicCon Vegas, and come see us, come hang out, come play some games. If you got any idea of what decks you want us to play, while we're there, if you're going to be there, throw some of the suggestions in the comments. Also in the comments, if you're going to MagicCon, what are you most excited for about MagicCon? Am I forgetting anything else, Morgan, before I get into the YouTube-y stuff?
Subscribe, leave comments.
Yeah, subscribe.
That stuff. Yeah.
Leave comment. Well, I was going to get to that. I just didn't know if there was any other content-related things that I should talk about.
Nope. We'll be at MagicCon. We'll see you there.
If you want to support the channel, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Check out the other videos we got, the other episodes of Geek and Speak. Check out our gameplay series. Check out some of the videos that Morgan's put out, independently. He's got some good stuff. Let us know if you want us to do more shorts. The shorts seem to do really well, so just let us know if that's something you'd like to see. If you want to go the extra mile, though, you can head on over to patreon.com/geekandseek YouTube and support us financially there. We really appreciate it. Any support that we get, we're going to be using that for our expenses in Vegas, or at least as much of it as we can. So, if you give what's the smallest, $1?
I think so.
If you give $1, we appreciate it regardless. Doesn't matter.
Bro, I haven't updated our Patreon in so long. I actually really don't remember what the tiers are.
Oh, well, Jewel is furious. Jewel is
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Jewel. I'm so sorry,
Well, whatever the lowest amount is on our Patreon, if that's all you could give, we really appreciate it regardless. And even if you don't, we just like you being here watching the videos and supporting the channel that way. Okay, let's get into our main topic, which is cards that get you killed. Before we get into the cards themselves, Preston, you had something that you wanted to talk about before we actually got into the meat and potatoes?
Yeah, so I just wanted to bring up that if you've been playing Magic for, I don't know, even like 3 or 4 months, you probably understand that Mill and Poison are all cards that could very easily take up this entire list if we wanted to. So we try to pick some other stuff, because I feel most people understand that pretty quickly. If you play Poison or if you play Mill, people are probably going to target you.
Yeah, so in that same... Okay, go ahead. I agree.
Oh, no, I agree. But that doesn't mean everyone else agrees.
I had myself muted. Let me say that again. I think Mill is Mill is overhated, and I actually think that Infect is actually not that scary in Commander either. That could change someday, right? Like we've talked about how it was made for 1v1, and that's why it's 10 poison counters, right? So should it be a higher number in Commander? Well, I would say no, because you need to do it to 3 people and not just 1. And even though we got a bunch of extra poison support in March of the Machine, I think it was, I still think Infect is relatively fair. It's kind of a feel bad. Like if you get killed by Infect way before the game ends, like that's kind of a feel bad. But that's like if the same thing is if you like played a Voltron style deck. Like it's I don't think it's that different. So I don't disagree with Preston's sentiment that people get salty over Mill and Infect. I'm just saying that it shouldn't be, you know?
Oh yeah, no, I agree. But it is going to get you killed, so understand what's going to happen before you choose to make that decision.
Speaking of that, so before I get into the cards, I wanted to say that when we talk about cards that we think get you killed, we don't necessarily mean that playing the card, like what the card does, the card's ability or the card's effect is what's going to get you killed. There are definitely cards that are out there that can do that, and there's going to be some cards that we talk about that can do that. But we're mainly talking about cards that you play that make you the target for the rest of the table, and you just die fast because you played a really powerful card that nobody likes. So let's get right into it. Since you're not doing too great, Morgan, and you want to rest your voice, I'll let you go ahead and get this started so you can rest while Preston and I talk about ours. What's the first card you got for us today?
Yeah. So the last thing I would add to your description while it was good is that doesn't mean don't play these cards necessarily, but I think it would mean like if you're going to play the cards that we're going to talk about, make sure you're packing the heat to back it up, because I think that I think all of these are good cards, but they're almost like so good they're bad because they will draw the ire of the table a lot of the time. So just that doesn't mean don't play these cards. That just means like think twice and be smart about when you play them. So my first card is the infamous Sol Ring, which I have gone on record on this podcast in other videos saying that I think Sol Ring should be on the Game Changers list, if not banned. We banned a lot of the other fast mana. I think fast mana is bad for the format. I think especially at casual levels, it's just super lame. I don't like Sol Ring, but that's not really the reason that we're talking about it. It's like we all know that if you turn one Sol Ring, everyone's like, "Oh, he turn one Sol Ring, he's ahead. We have to team up on him." That's how it always goes. And a couple of years ago, Game Nights on one of their podcast episodes did the math. Like they watched all of their videos, they watched a bunch of Commander Clash, they watched a bunch of Play to Win, like a bunch of gameplay content that's on YouTube, and they also
did a bunch of in-home games, like they played games there and recorded data from those games.
Yeah, so they found that playing turn one Sol Ring actually lowers your win percentage. And I think a lot of that's because of this. I think it draws the ire of the table. So, and obviously I think what I'm saying probably doesn't really apply to like the late game, right? Like if you're on turn 8 and you already have a bunch of mana and then you top deck your Sol Ring, like, I mean, it's still good. It's still busted, but it's not like as good as if it's like in the early game and you're getting your busted commander in a turn early or something, right? So, and Sol Ring's in almost every deck. So obviously I'm not saying don't play Sol Ring. What I'm saying is don't run it out and draw the ire of the table. Because if you play an early Sol Ring, it does get people's, like, their warning bells go off. And they're like, oh, we got to do something about that. And they'll team up on you, even if it's not the correct play. So what I've started doing in the last year or two is I don't, even if I have Sol Ring in my starting hand, I don't play it. I don't play it until I know it's actually going to amount to something. Like I have a 4 mana draw spell in hand or something like that. I'll drop Sol Ring and then follow it up immediately with something else. Don't just play Sol Ring and do nothing. If you go Sol Ring or if you go Sol Ring into a Signet, I just don't think that's a good move. Don't do that. It draws too much heat.
Absolutely disagree with that last part. You have to assert your dominance at the table.
No, you don't.
Say, I got the Sol Ring and I'm better than you. No.
And your win percentage goes down.
You make really valid points. I can't disagree with that, especially because it's not even necessarily that when you play Sol Ring turn 1 that the whole table is actively going to go at you. If they have inconsequential damage or just a random thing that they can do to somebody just because they're trying to get an advantage to themselves, they just be like, well, I guess I'll just do it to you because you turn 1 Sol Ring. Like if they just have a 1/1 that they can swing because like it's a mana dork, but they don't have anything to do with the mana, so they just want to deal some damage. It's like, well, you turn 1 Soul Ring, so I'll swing at you. Or like a Gitaxian Probe. It's like, oh well, I'll look at your hand, or a card in your hand, and that's you turn 1 Soul Ring, you'll be fine. So I think a lot of incidental stuff like that happens, but I think that there is definitely an argument for players actively going after you because you have a Soul Ring. Whether it's fair or not, you played it on turn 1, so it's on you at that point.
Yeah, what do you think, Preston?
Yeah, our play group, I think, has evolved to the point where we don't, ready the battalions the moment someone gets that turn 1 or 2 Soul Ring, but we still do the incidental, I have my 1/1 ready to swing. Everyone's open, but the guy with the Soul Ring's probably going to get it. We definitely still do that. Yeah. And 100%. Sometimes when you get to the last couple turns of the game, if you had that 1 or 2 more life or 1 more card in your hand someone discarded, you might have won. So it can absolutely affect you, even in a play group like ours, let alone with anyone else you might be playing with.
Yeah, all good points. Okay, well, I'll move into my first card. The first card that I'm going to talk about is a basic island. No, I'm just kidding. It's actually Counterspell. So Counterspell is definitely one of those cards that every blue deck needs. You need at least one. Any deck that has blue, you should probably have one at least.
I'm sorry, real quick. No, Prof, I have a question. Do you mean specifically Counterspell, or do you just mean categorically Counterspells?
So I'm talking about the card Counterspell, but as far as playing Counterspells.
All right, carry on. I just wanted that clarified.
You want at least one in your deck, because there's going to be game-ending things that you are going to be, you're probably going to be the only player able to stop it, unless there's other people playing blue and then they can stop it. But it's important to have that in your deck because it's an important part of deck building is not only just getting to the win, but making sure that your opponents can't get to the win first. That's why you play things like removal or board wipes or counter spells. But they just draw so much heat. You counter somebody's win con and it's like, I had to do that or we all lose. And they're like, nope, now you die. Now you die. You countered my thing. Now you die. And I've been that guy. I've been the guy that's had my stuff countered and then gone after that one player who countered my spell, even if it wasn't the right thing to do, just because I was being spiteful and I was mad. I've done that. Most of us have done that at some point, I feel. But it's while it's a necessary card, it's definitely something that will get you killed if you use it just kind of loosely.
Yeah, this might be the biggest kingmaker on the list that we're going to talk about.
Really?
It's definitely not the strongest, but in those situations where you do something like that and it gets someone to go after you for the rest of the game, I feel like this is the card that's going to have the most of those kind of moments.
We might talk about some other cards that might change your mind, but I think that just because it's so easy to cast, most of the time you just need 2 blue.
Well, okay.
People kind of see it coming.
Well, yeah,
but
you can just bluff it. It
just feels worse. It feels worse when you see it coming and then it happens to you.
Okay, so I agree that if you have 6 plus counter spells in your deck and you kind of feel like you could just pop them off willy-nilly, you're like, I don't want you to draw extra cards this turn. I don't really want you to have that creature, whatever. Then I agree. That's going to draw so much heat. You're going to die and everyone's going to be annoyed with you. But I've kind of come to the philosophy that unless I'm specifically some kind of control deck, that I'm usually only running 3 counter spells in my deck. And you just wait for when you actually can't stop it. If there's maybe you're a graveyard deck and you fold to rest in peace. Okay, I gotta hold a counter spell in case someone has an effect like that. Something that or someone they have a good board and they're dropping the Crater Hoof. You have to have the counter spell, right? If you just if you only have a few in your deck, so you have to really hold on to them and you can't just pop them off willy-nilly, I don't think they draw that much heat. I mean, yeah, so they're going to be like, oh, I can't believe you countered my Crater Hoof. What are they going to do? Swing you with a bunch of 1/1s now? I think it's okay. I agree that if you have a lot of counter spells and you're popping them off like crazy, that will get you killed. But I don't know if a counter spell does it.
I think that it happens more often than you might think. There are people that really, really just hate counter magic, like really hate it. Not saying that I'm one of them because I definitely play counter spells. That's definitely something that I will throw into my deck.
I wonder if it's because so much stuff has ETBs now. Because like if someone's like swords to plowshare or like exiles your creature or kills your creature, you're just like, okay, that's fair. You know, it is what it is. You had it. But like, I do agree that counter spells feel saltier. But I wonder if that's just because everything has ETBs nowadays.
Could be. All right. Well, Preston, let's move on. And what's your first card for this?
Let me grab it. All right, so first up, I wanted to mention Consecrated Sphinx. 4 and 2 blue for a 4/6 Sphinx creature with flying. Whenever an opponent draws a card, you may draw 2 cards. This just gets out of hand every time it's played. Like, it's basically impossible for this not to immediately put you ahead of everyone else, unless you just, for whatever reason, choose to not use it. But if you're playing it, you're probably going to use it. And you're going to make everyone annoyed.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised we don't see this card more often. Like it's a little expensive, but it's not like brutally expensive, is it? And yeah, it's a 6 mana creature in blue. So like if you're like a big mana deck, you could just play like the green draw stuff and it's probably just as good and it's not going to draw as much heat for some reason, even though green's busted. But like every time this hits the table, one of 2 things happens. They kill the Consecrated Sphinx, or they kill you. And if they don't, you probably win the game because you untap with 10 extra cards in your hand or something, or maybe even more. So I kind of agree that, like, well, actually, maybe that's why we don't see it more often, is because maybe it just does draw that much heat.
Yeah, I think that that's one of the reasons. I do think that it is. I don't. It's kind of expensive, and it's also 6 mana. So like if you're playing like a mono blue deck, it might be a while before you actually are able to get this out there. Unless if you're playing with really fast mana or like, I don't know. I just don't see this card pop out as much as I will think it should. But here's what I've seen before. And here's what I think is the most fun way to use this is you just challenge somebody to draw you as many cards as possible and be like, I'll never choose not to draw cards. So you can try and mill me out if you want. But that doesn't happen. People play Consecrated Sphinx and it's like, you got to kill the Sphinx immediately or you got to kill that person immediately. Because like you said, Morgan, they get back to their turn. They have at minimum, if it's still a 4-player game when it comes out, they're going to have 6 cards extra in hand, 7 cards because the card they draw for their turn. So they basically just got a full grip after 1 rotation. They're going to have the gas that's going to propel them to either take the lead or win the game. So that's one of those cards that's an immediate threat as soon as it hits the board.
Yeah, I mean, it would be good if it said like anytime an opponent draws any number of cards you draw 2, that would already be broken, but you are always going to get twice as many cards. If they draw 10, you get 20.
If it's if it said like 1 or if when an opponent draws 1 or more cards, you may draw 2.
Yeah. That would still be fantastic.
I mean, that's kind of going to be. That's kind of Fairy Artisan, or no, Fairy Mastermind, right? It's like a 2 mana creature that says whenever your opponent draws their second card, you draw a card. Like that's still like a really good card that I play in a lot of blue decks, and that's way worse than Consecrated Sphinx. I mean, Consecrated Sphinx is 3 times as much mana, but still, like
it's just so much better.
Yeah.
I don't play it in a ton of decks. I should probably put it in more decks because it is a fun card. But I think maybe the reason I don't put it in decks is because I know that people are going to target me when it comes out. I don't know. It's a good card, though. All right, Morgan, what's your second card for us today?
All right, speaking of cards that draw too many cards and make me want to kill Jason, this is Wristic Study, which is a game changer for 2 and a blue. It's an enchantment. This is whenever an opponent casts a spell, you may draw a card unless that player pays 1. So, all right, in a perfect world, this card's actually not that good because everyone's just responsible and they slowball it and they just almost always. Yeah, I know.
What?
I know. Can you imagine? And that's kind of the approach I take. Like, I see Wristic Study and I say, look, I am almost always going to pay the 1. The only time I won't pay the 1 is if what I'm going to do is going to kill the player with the Wristic Study, or it's going to get rid of the Wristic Study. That's the only time I'm not going to pay the 1, and I try to get the table to do the same, and they just don't. So the reason Wristic Study will get you killed is because I don't want you to draw 38 cards off of it, because no one else at the table will pay the 1 with me. So the only other option is if no one's going to blow up the Wristic Study, I just have to kill the player with the Wristic Study. And we've seen, and here's actually something interesting, is I think out of all the cards on this list, this is one of the few that I think is warranted. It's worth doing despite the risk, because we've seen on even our gameplay show and games that we're not filming that Jason drops a Wristic Study. No one frickin' pays the 1. And everyone's like, guys, we need to kill Jason. And we finally are like, okay, yeah, let's go kill Jason. But now you have all the cards in the world and you can protect yourself. So it's kind of like, does that make sense? Like, it's kind of worth the risk attached to it. Like, it's going to draw a lot of heat, and you're annoying people because you're always asking if they're going to pay the 1. So it's like cards that they know you're drawing, but it's also like a skill issue that people don't pay the 1. So what do you guys think about Wristic Study?
I agree with what you're saying, because I was actually going to bring that up myself. I've won plenty of games with you guys and even on the channel just because I drew a ton of cards from Wristic Study, and it helped me set up to either protect myself or win the game or both. You got to pay the 1. I'm not perfect about it, because oftentimes I'll have a Wristic Study out as well, and I'll be like, I won't pay for yours, you don't pay for mine, and then kind of come to an arrangement.
By the way, I hate that people do that. Like even when you're the only one with the Wristic Study, there's like, you'll initiate it. You'll be like, hey, if you don't pay the 1, I won't kill your commander. And they'll just be like, okay. Like, no, just pay the 1.
It's like, yes, give me a card. And you know what? Sometimes, like, you can bluff with it too. You could bluff with it. You could be like, hey, you don't pay the 1 and I won't do this terrible thing to you, which in your head, you're like, I can't do that terrible thing to you anyways, but let me see if you fall for this. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it's a fun way to get an extra card for nothing. But no, every time that I drop a Wristic Study, I definitely become more of a target than I was before I had it. No matter what stage of the game I'm in, no matter what phase of the game I'm in, I drop a Wristic Study, people start coming after me. Not super brutally, but it's like they always make sure that on their attacks they send one creature my way because I have a Wristic Study. Definitely one of those cards that are really, really good, really, really fun to play, but will really, really get you killed sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, it slows the game down substantially, which is going to make everyone mad. And then you were either choosing to make everyone pay 1 more for every spell they cast, or give them insane card advantage. Like, there's no way this doesn't make almost every single player against it mad. Very few people are going to be like, yeah, I'm fine with someone having a Wristic Study, because it's awful.
If they're fine with the Wristic Studies, because they have, like, Bane of Progress in hand, you know? They're like, it's going to die next turn, so it's fine. Like, that's the only time
they have some nasty brewing.
Yeah.
And the thing that I think that, you know, kind of eludes people most of the time is they think of it as just a card draw spell, but it's not. Like you said, Preston, it's kind of like a tax spell too. Like, you have to pay one extra mana for everything that you cast. And a lot of players just don't want to do that. Or they want to cast like 3 things on their turn, but if they cast 3 things, they can't pay for any of the Wristic Studies because it uses all their mana. So it's like, do I give this person a couple cards, or do I just not play the game? So that's another reason why people really, really don't like this card.
There's some decks where that's just not an option for them. But like really my deck where I play everything where all the creatures and other permanents are 2 or less, I can't be wasting that much mana for everything I'm casting because of how many things I want to cast in the turn.
I have an aggro deck. I have an aggro deck that's like that too, where like it's a bunch of like 1 and 2 mana stuff, and so like I actually like my land count in that is way lower than my normal decks. And or like what if you're a storm deck and your whole thing is you want to cast a bunch of spells each turn? Like there's some decks that they're like, I don't know what to do.
Right. I will say, in fairness to your statement earlier about Wristic Study slowing the game down, doesn't your little creatures deck, isn't that the whole plan, is to just slowly grind players out? Isn't that the whole plan of that deck?
Yeah, but there's just a difference between everyone take one and I'm going to draw a card.
Jason, there's a difference between you doing it and Preston doing it, okay?
Accurate. All right.
Seriously.
So
when you're at 40 life, losing one is less of a deal than an opponent drawing one card. You're going to notice the cards more. I'm not saying my deck isn't good, but I know for a fact it doesn't make people as angry as the Wristic Study.
All right, Jason, what's your next card?
my next card is Bolus's Citadel. It's 3 and 3 black as a legendary artifact. It does my favorite thing in the whole game. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may play the top card of your library. If you cast a spell this way, pay life equal to its converted mana cost rather than pay its mana cost. And then it has tap, sacrifice 10 non-land permanents. Each opponent loses 10 life. Now, this card's on the list, not necessarily because it's a card that you play and people just start coming after you and, you know, they want to kill you and get you out of the game so you can't use this. They will do that, but that's not the reason I put it on here. I put it on here because it's just too dang tempting to pay life instead of mana for your spells, and you get to play them from the top, Man, I have killed myself with this card on multiple occasions, and I know I'm not the only one. It's just one of those things where it's this card to me, I think it's more important for me personally to have fun with this card than it is to win the game with this card. If I use it and it wins me the game because I'm able to play stuff from the top or sacrifice 10 permanents and, you know, people lose life, great. But if I just get to play 7 things from the top on one turn and go down to like 4 life, and it's like, all right, that didn't help me win, pass, I'll have a big smile on my face and I will have had a fantastic time. But it's definitely a card that people will come after you if you play it, but you run a much higher risk, in my opinion, of killing yourself with it.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say, is they don't really have to come at you that hard for doing it because you did most of the work yourself. Like, I think if you're a deck that really wants Bolas the Citadel, it's because you can actually, like, go through it and, like, realistically win right away, right?
Or
like, if you're
offset the life that you're paying.
Yeah, like, if this is, like, actually, like, one of the best cards in your deck, like if you're gaining a lot of life, you're doing life swap. Maybe you're some kind of storm deck. Maybe you have like a Cheerio style deck. Like there are lots of decks where or your mana value is just like your curve in your deck is like insanely low. They're like the decks that really want Bolas' Citadel is like the best card in the deck. But the problem is a lot of people just put it in their average black decks because it's cool and it's value, baby. And look, I'm a big believer.
Value.
I'm a big believer in life as a resource, but there does come a point where like, yeah, but it's a limited resource, right? Like you will, like some people will just be like, I'm gonna play this in my stompy deck. I'm gonna pay like 6 life to cast this like a colossal Dreadmaw off the top, and I'm like, nope, don't. You're gonna die. So you don't actually. It's not, they don't have to come at you that hard, because if you don't play Bolas' Citadel and immediately win, you just have to stub your toe and you're dead. So yeah, I agree, but I think it's more of a deck building choice than anything, that like just don't put this in your deck unless your deck can offset it, because if you're just playing for value, I don't think it's good.
Here's the other thing too. Somebody just has to counter whatever it is that you tried to play, and then you just lost life for no reason. So like somebody could have a counter spell up, you pay like say 13 life and you play an Emrakul off the top because you think you're going to steal somebody's turn, and they just counter spell it and you just lost 13 life for no reason.
That is pretty funny, actually.
Yeah, I mean, card prices aren't the best thing to look at when you're talking about this, but when you compare what this card used to be when like it first got printed and people thought it was going to be the worst thing ever versus now you can get a copy for $5, people have realized it's really easy for this card to just be kind of bad in certain decks.
Well, and it is a game changer, but it's a game changer because the decks that can use it it's busted.
Yes.
Use
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But so many people put it in decks where it probably shouldn't belong, where the average CMC is like 5+, and you're not winning the turn you're casting all that stuff, so you're just leaving yourself at 4 like Jason. So yeah, it's still a very good card though.
It was fun.
Yeah, no.
I had fun getting to 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is fun, but you're probably going to kill yourself.
Probably. That's probably true.
It's the topic for the video.
Preston, why don't you go and take us through your second card?
I hate this card. Next up, I have Field of the Dead, one of the biggest mistakes ever printed. It's a land that enters the battlefield tapped. It taps for colorless mana. Whenever it or another land enters the battlefield under your control, if you control 7 or more lands with different names, you make a 2/2 black zombie creature token. And 99% of decks that exist now have like 30 different name lands because of how many cheap like utility lands there are that everyone has access to. Everyone can turn this on with almost every deck they have. There's no reason not to run it in most decks, and it's just so annoying. And like once you get started, it's either get rid of the land or that person is almost certainly going to win in a couple turns.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't honestly see Field of the Dead that much. But it's one of those cards that reinforces the idea that you need to run land removal. Like you need to run targeted land removal. There's so many just really, really good
Normalize
lands
MLD.
out there. What?
Normalize MLD. Let's go.
No.
Yeah.
Yes. Wait, mass land destruction?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Can we kick him out, Preston? Can we ban him from his own channel?
It's not even that bad. It's not even that bad.
It's terrible. It's horrible. We're getting off topic with the mass land destruction, you psycho.
Well, that makes it so it's going to take so much longer for them to get up to 7 lands again.
I think if you mass
okay,
destroy the lands, it's just
so you think I'm joking, but here's the problem. It's really easy to recur lands, especially like individually, right? So part of the problem with Field of the Dead is that it'll immediately just come back on and start doing its thing again if you get it back. And there's a lot of ways to do that, especially if you're like in green, but even then there's like other ways to bring it back. Like you could do like Sun Titan effects. There's lots and lots of ways to get lands back. So I kind of joke about MLD because I actually do think that there's a lot of like social dilemmas with MLD. I think that maybe a lot of that's unfair, but that's not really the discussion for today. But the upside of doing that, like if you cast an Armageddon, is like, okay, whatever they were going to use to bring back the Field of the Dead, they now have to do it multiple times in order to get Field of the Dead back on. And that's it. And then the decks that Field of the Dead is best in is land decks, where like Lord Windgrace or something, where their whole thing is like sacrificing and bringing lands back. So it like doesn't matter. But I do agree with Preston because I had this in almost all of my decks. Like even my monocolor decks, I could find that most of the time I could fit it in there and it would realistically come on. And it just felt, not even that it necessarily got me killed, but it just felt so strong and oppressive. And I would just build back from like board wipes and stuff way faster than everyone else. And so maybe it's in the same ballpark as like Wristic Study, where like it's strong enough to kind of, but kind of be worth it, even if people are like, oh, freaking Field of the Dead. Like maybe it's worth it because it's strong enough, but I don't know.
See, but it also has that same thing that Sol Ring kind of has, where it depends on when you play it in the game. If you play it as your first land for turn, it's probably not that big a deal. Like it's like if I see somebody play a Field of the Dead as their first land, I'm not worried about it because either they have to ramp out into more lands to get to that seventh land earlier, or you're not making zombies till turn 7, which by turn 7, if you can't deal with them making one zombie a turn, you're probably going to lose that game anyways. Now, if it's a landfall deck, that's different because they're probably able to get that Field of the Dead out turn 1 and then able to activate it maybe turn 3, turn 4. And just start pumping out zombies like crazy. But that's a very niche, and I know Landfall is a very, very popular deck building style, but it's just one specific type of deck that it's really busted in. Now, if you're playing it mid to late game, where like it's your 6th or it's your 7th or it's your 8th land, then it's definitely going to start drawing some hatred, especially if it comes after like a board wipe or something. And it's like, oh, well, this person's going to start building up a zombie army every turn, and I'm going to waste my whole turn casting my commander for the second or third time. It's not one of those cards that I see come down and I want to go after that person immediately. But it draws hate. I've seen it draw hate in games. Okay. Yeah, that was Preston. So now, Morgan, why don't you take us through your third card?
All right, my third card makes me incredibly sad because I actually really like this card, but I actually have kind of changed my philosophy on it. This is Shildra the Apocalypse. Which is for 2, a black and a black, a Phyrexian Praetor, 4/5 with Death Touch. If you were playing Standard a year or two ago, you remembered this because it was in like almost every deck. And it's still legal in Standard right now, and it's almost not played at all. It's funny how things change. But it says whenever you draw a card, you gain 2 life, and whenever an opponent draws a card, they lose 2 life. So I was really excited about this card when it came out because it's just a very simple line of text on a very simple creature, and I just like those kind of cards. And for what it is, it's relatively powerful. I mean, Preston and I have had several conversations on the podcast about how like incidental life gain is like really, really good. And you know what the best thing to do in Commander is? Draw cards. So if you have like a decent blocker / decent attacker on board, and you're doing so, like taking normal game actions that you're going to take anyways, and it's incidentally gaining you life as a part of that, that seems so freaking good. The problem is that your opponents also know that the best thing you can do in Commander is draw cards. So now they're losing 2 life for every card that they draw. And even though that, unless you're like specifically playing it with like wheels and stuff, in which case I think if you're playing it in a wheels deck, it's probably strong enough to be worth it. But if you're not doing that, I think you're just annoying everyone and you're not doing enough damage to warrant how much they're going to retaliate against you. And there's no way you gained enough life to survive that. Which is too bad because when this came out, I was thinking this might be a card that you could just like fairly play in most black decks and it would be good enough. But I actually think that if you're not playing a wheel deck or you're not specifically playing like Valgavoth or something like the Rakdos one that cares about doing damage to people on other people on their turns, if you're not playing one of those kind of decks, I just don't think that this is worth it because it's otherwise just annoying people and drawing more hate than it's worth.
Yeah, 2 life adds up. 2 life adds up fast, especially if you're in a deck where you're going to be able to draw a bunch of cards on one turn. Or, you know, if the person who plays the Shieldred, like you said, is playing a wheel deck, it draws unnecessary hate. I think that what honestly people feel really bad about is the fact that it doesn't say except the first card they draw during their draw step.
Yeah, so you're like, guaranteed that one, right?
No matter what, I'm losing life.
It's a guaranteed 8 life difference every rotation.
It punishes players for just doing what the rules tell you to do. And that's kind of one of the reasons I think it's a feel bad. But honestly, Shieldred comes down. I want to get rid of Shieldred more than I want to get rid of the player. But people don't like when they get penalized for just playing the game the way that it's supposed to be played. And that draws a lot of hatred at tables.
Well, one of the reasons it draws so much hate is it's one of those cards that punishes you for trying to find the answer. Like some of these, like, yeah, they're annoying, but you know, as long as you can go digging, you can deal with it maybe. But with Shieldred, if you go digging to deal with it, it's going to kill you. So of course it's going to make everyone mad.
Yeah, because it's like you're digging to find the answer, but then it's like, okay, I found the answer. I got rid of Shieldred, but now I'm at 10.
Yeah, I 1-to-1 with cards, and it cost me 10 life to do it. Thanks.
All right, I'll move into my third card. My third card on this list is Blood Moon. Everyone's favorite little enchantment. It's a red enchantment for 2 and a red, and it just says non-basic lands or mountains. I hate this card. I hate it so much. Every time that it comes down on the table, it's like as soon as I can use my lands for what color they're supposed to be, I'm killing you first. You're dying immediately. Because I don't even want to run the risk of somebody getting their Blood Moon back. That just sounds terrifying to me. I think that a simplistic answer for this card is play more basics, but that's just not viable a lot of the time. A lot of the times, you know, especially with the commanders that get printed now, they're all like multicolored. 2 colors. I see a lot of 3-color commanders getting played more than like 2-color commanders. And once you get to 3 colors, it's like running a bunch of basics isn't going to be helpful because you're going to need color fixing. You're going to need better color fixing. And if you're not in green, the best way to get your color fixing is to play non-basics that can tap for multiple colors. And even in monocolored decks, where you are running a lot of basic lands, there's a ton of good utility lands that you want to be able to use. And then there's the cherry on top. What if you're not playing red? Now you just can't cast your spells. And that sucks. That feels so bad. Any card that prevents you from playing the game or has the potential to prevent you from playing the game is awful to play against. And this card can sometimes be impossible to overcome for certain players playing certain decks. So I hate this card. It's one of those cards that as soon as I see it hit the table, I'm going to kill whoever played it as soon as I can. And I'm going to be trying to convince everyone else at the table to kill that person as soon as they can.
I kind of agree. So I actually think Blood Moon is actually like not that brutal because you can still use that red mana to pay for like the generic costs in your spells, right? You can use that mana to like pay for a lot of abilities. You can use it to filter your mana in your signets so you still get your colors. Like there's a lot, like it's not like someone Armageddon you still have your lands. You're just a lot more limited on what you can use them for. So if you run like just like an appropriate amount of basics, I find that Blood Moon isn't that bad. But the problem is like, even if you like, I have a 5-color deck that has, 8 basics in it. That's 8 basics is a lot of basics for a 5-color deck. But, you know, sometimes I'm just not going to have the basics. And sometimes I'm just not going to draw the mana rocks. Sometimes I'm just not going to draw my my ramp spell so I can, you know, far seek into a basic. You know, like sometimes that's just not going to happen and you're going to get mana screwed. So I kind of agree. And I think that the reason that it deserves to be on the list is I don't think it slows people down enough to save you. I think that it just pisses everyone off that you're slowing them down, but eventually they are going to find a basic. Eventually they are going to find a mana rock. Eventually they are going to be able to start casting the majority of their spells again, and they will target the Blood Moon. And if they can't target the Blood Moon, they will target you or anything else you got. So
they will not forget.
Yeah.
They will not forget. And the other thing to consider with this card, you can drop it on turn 3. Which for certain decks, for certain deck builds, that can be detrimental. No.
You do the modern move, which is you turn 1 a Mana Dork, you turn 2 the Blood Moon. There you go.
Good call. Good call. Like the way you think. Actually, I hate that, and I hope nobody ever does that. And I hope that the people that do that cry themselves to sleep at night.
Preston, you play a lot of Blood Moon.
Preston.
Yeah, don't worry. I'm gonna turn 1 Soul Ring and turn 2 Blood Moon just for Jason with my Goblin deck next time.
I'll jump across the table.
What's funny about Blood Moon is it actually a lot of the time does still wreck like 1 and 2 color decks, because like I have a deck that I'm brewing right now that's a 2-color deck. And I was just like, let's do the Blood Moon check. And I just like double checked. Like I put in a few dual lands, not a lot. And I put in, you know, all the utility lands that I thought would be cool on theme. And I checked and I only had 5 basics in a 2-color deck. And I was like, how the hell did that happen? So like sometimes even like the 1 and 2 color decks just get screwed. Or like if you're especially if you're like an artifact deck and a lot of your, well, actually that won't matter because a lot of your stuff will be colorless. But like you just will run a lot of utility lands in a lot of decks. So even like the 1 and 2 color decks that still theoretically have more basics, and also you could say like more than half of my lands are basics, you still just might draw the other half of lands. So
yeah, I do play this in 2 decks right now, I think, but I also run the other like non-basic hate stuff. Like that's a theme of those decks. So like, yeah, I'm going to get that hate, but I'm going to like actually use that as a potential win con, and it's not there just to annoy people and nothing else happens. which I think is a reason you'd would want to put on these. So if you're not doing that, maybe just leave it out.
Yeah, it's still just one of those cards that even when it hits the table, it's a feel bad for most players. All right, Preston, let's move on to your third card, or should I say your third cycle of cards?
Yeah, so these are all relatively grouped together, but I'll pick one specifically to talk about, the one I think is the worst. And this is the Ancient Dragon cycle. Specifically, I wanted to point out Ancient Copper Dragon. 4 and 2 red for a 6/5 flyer Elder Dragon. When it deals combat damage to a player, you roll a d20, you make a number of treasure tokens equal to the result. All it takes is one swing with these most of the time, and it's game changing. Like, even the worst of them is good, and Ancient Copper Dragon is kill it immediately, or they are going to win that game most of the time. Well, heaven forbid if they get multiple combats with it.
Well, and even I think all of these are good, but I do think that the red one and the green one are the two that I would be most scared of. So the green one is the one that I think it's the Gnawbone.
+1/+1 counters.
No. It's whenever a creature you control deals damage to a player. I'll pull it up real quick.
No, that's
I was thinking of
Gnawbone. That's a different card.
Yeah, I was thinking of something else. Yep, don't listen to me. But I mean, even if it's like a bad roll on Ancient Copper Dragon, it's still pretty good, right? Like how many treasures does it have to make for you to feel bad about it?
There are creatures that are played that do that make you one treasure when they do the combat damage.
Yeah, Goldspan.
That's the worst you're going to get with this.
Yeah, Goldspan Dragon has haste, and it doubles the amount of mana that your treasures can make, and it's 1 less mana. So I would argue that like floor Goldspan Dragon's better, but this, if it's just making, I don't know, 4. Like it doesn't have to make very many treasures for you to be like, oh, heck yeah. And then God forbid it's like, 10 or more, which is going to happen 50% of half the time. It's going to be a high roll. That's insane. That's so much mana. So I actually haven't played against this card that much. So I don't know how much of my hate it's going to draw, but it does seem like, especially if they have a fistful of cards, like if they have a bunch of cards in their hand, and I know if they get a bunch of treasures that they're going to be able to play a bunch of their hand, I'm worried, and I would remove it if I could.
Well, I think that the main reason that you don't see Ancient Copper Dragon a lot is because it's an expensive card. Like this card is pricey. Talking like $80 for the cheapest one pricey. And the thing about it is that it comes down under the table, and if you don't have a way to give it haste, that next rotation is going to be everybody going after you or trying to get rid of the Ancient Copper Dragon because they know it's just going to be bad. And there's definitely ways that you can just infinitely combo with this and one other card. I don't think it's Relentless Assault because I think that's the sorcery. Whatever the extra combat one is where you pay 5 mana and you get an extra combat and you untap all your creatures that attacked.
So you just have to be in the top 75% on your rolls, and then you could theoretically take infinite combats.
You just need 5. You just need to get at least 5 every time. So yeah, like 75% of the time, you're going to get enough to just keep doing it over and over and over again. And here's the thing too. Even on those rolls that you don't roll a 5, you probably still have some treasures left over from the previous roll so that you could just pay the 5 and do it again. Unless it's like the first roll that you get and you get like a 4 or something and you can't do it again, you're very likely just going to be able to swing the table out with those 2 cards.
Well, even then, you might just have the extra mana. Like you just might have some lands or something.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, this is definitely probably one of the scariest creatures that's been printed in the past couple of years, and definitely something that's going to draw a lot of hatred whenever it comes out.
Yeah, I did want to say the worst of this cycle is the white one, and that makes a 1/1 depending on how many, like what you roll is. That's the worst of them, is 1/1 flyers.
Well, even that's not bad because they have flying.
Exactly.
And they could be skull clamped.
Oh,
yes,
they can be
that's
skull
the worst
clamped.
of them.
Oh. All right, Morgan, take us through your last card.
All right, my last card. I'm falling apart. I'll make it. My last card is Drith Magistrate, which is for 1 and a white. It's a human wizard, 1/3. That says your opponent can't cast spells from anywhere other than their hands. So this is another card like Shildra that when it came out, I was actually excited about because I was like, couldn't you just like generically play this in any old white deck? And it's pretty good because white decks care a lot about like small creatures. So a lot of white decks, you'll just incidentally get a lot of extra bonuses, like you're drawing cards or you can recur them easily, whatever. And then you're keeping your opponents from casting their commanders. That's the main thing. You keep your opponents from casting their commanders, and that's just like, okay, do something about it, right? Like, if your opponents built a deck that doesn't work if their commander's not in play, they built a bad deck. They need to go home and get good. All right. So it's like, it should be fair game. I have some decks that like, if the commander is on the battlefield, obviously the deck is a lot better, but like if the commander never shows up, the deck still works. And that's, I think you all players should be prepared for that. So that was kind of like my mentality. But the problem is like it's just anywhere other than their hand. Like, what if you're just a deck that like you have like red impulse draw style effects, or maybe you're a graveyard deck, right? So the problem with it is that you're not just like saying go home and get good with your deck building. You're also just like shutting off complete archetypes in the game, and that is like really brutal. And it's just a 1/3, right? It can't like block like the big old stompy creatures that are going to come your way because you're keeping Timmy from casting his commander. So yeah, Drith Magistrate, it's not as good as I thought it was because it draws too much hate.
I don't like not being able to play my commander. Whether that's a card like this preventing me from doing it at all, or my commander getting killed a bunch of times and it's really expensive to play now, I just don't like not being able to play my commander because the way I build all my commander decks is that it works with the commander. If my commander's not out there, it might be able to do a thing or two, but most of the time I want my commander out there because it's just the way that my deck is supposed to be played. So whenever I see this come down, I can't allow that person to live, especially because this is in white. White has a lot of ways to get small stuff back from the graveyard. It also has a lot of ways to just protect it. It's got to go, and subsequently the player who cast it has to go. You just tried to prevent me from having a good time, dude. What's up with that? Why would you do that? That's kind of my reaction every time I see a Drith Magistrate.
Yeah, no, Morgan sucks. Commanders are like part of the point of the format, and you need to stop being a bum and being a hater for no reason.
No. Unless you're like Voltron or something, like if you have like token deck, shouldn't your deck be able to make tokens and have token payoffs even if your commander's not in play? Like, that's my point. Like, your deck should work whether or not your commander's in play. Because, what if it gets swept up in board wipes and stuff? Like, I'm not even just talking about Drith Magistrate locks. I'm just like talking about like, sometimes just games of Magic happen, man. Sometimes games of Magic just happen.
Yeah, but there's a difference between you shutting me down with the 6-cost board wipe and a 2-cost creature. Those are very different.
It dies to lightning bolt. It's okay. You'll make it.
It does die to lightning bolt. You know what doesn't die to lightning bolt? Blood Moon.
True.
Morgan dies to lightning bolt. I think we should just use it on him.
Yeah. That card sucks. So let me talk about my last card. The last card that I'm going to talk about today is Kaalia of the Vast. So Kaalia of the Vast, it was a precon. It was a precon, right?
I think it was Commander 2011, which was the first cycle of official Wizards precons.
Yes. So
pretty sure.
It's a legendary creature, human cleric. It has flying. It is 1, a red, a white, and a black. And it says, whenever Kaalia of the Vast attacks an opponent, you may put an angel, demon, or dragon card from your hand onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking that opponent. This is one of those cards that the game doesn't even have to start. The game doesn't even have to. You don't even have to have rolled for turn order. And you sit down and you put this in your command zone and be like, I'm killing you first. That happens so often because Kaalia is so strong. You can get it out, give it haste on, and this is how most Kaalia decks work. You get it out as soon as possible. You give it haste as soon as possible. If you have to wait a turn for it to be able to attack, it's whatever, but you want to give it haste. And then you just put the worst thing in your hand onto the battlefield and you just, possibly kill somebody. What's the creature? I can't think of the name of it. The one where when it attacks you, when it deals damage, your life total becomes 1.
I don't remember.
So that just kills you because Kalia's trigger, Kalia's ability of putting a creature onto the battlefield tapped and attacking, that triggers, and then that card comes down, and then that creature deals damage, and then Kalia deals damage, and you just die. And I'm pretty sure that's still how it works, even the way combat rules have changed. But for a very, very, very long time, if it has changed, that's how it did work. But you could also just, play Kalia turn 4, give it haste, swing, put an Ancient Copper Dragon onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking. Now you're going to get a ton of treasure for that. This card is just so dangerous because of the potential, because you don't know all the time what is in that person's deck or what's in their hand or what they're going to be able to put on the battlefield just from one swing. I hate this card. I mean, well, I shouldn't say that. I don't hate it the way that I hate Blood Moon and Drith Magistrate, but it's a card that I just see people play, and it's like, okay, I have to kill you first, or you're just going to win the game. And I feel like that's a lot of players' mindset when they play. Like if they've played against Kalia before, it's one of those. It's probably the top commander that got to kill that commander first, got to kill that player first.
Okay, so you're talking about a philosophy that I think a lot of us subconsciously do, even if we're not aware of it, which is that when the game starts, you look around the table and you're thinking about what is possibly the scariest deck. Like, I think we all kind of do that. So that way, like, if you're not sure who you're supposed to attack, like everyone's defenseless. I got a couple creatures. Let's go in the red. Just attack the person who you think might have the strongest deck. I think that's kind of what you're talking about. The problem is like, I think that, like, okay, so there was a period of time where Kalia the Vast was, like, one of the strongest commanders in the world. But I just feel like by today's standards, it's kind of fair and kind of Timmy and kind of nostalgic and old school. And maybe it's just because, like, I wasn't brutally scarred by it in 2011 like some people were. But, like, I wasn't playing Magic yet in 2011. But
to be fair, I wasn't either.
Yeah, so I just, maybe I don't have the trauma that some people do, but I think by today's standards, it's just not that busted. And here's the problem. Like, so like Kalia has to attack in order to do the thing, right? So you have to give it haste. You're not in green. So yeah, I mean, you actually, no, you should still be able to ramp it. You have signets and talisman and stuff like that. But the problem is like, even if you kill Kalia and you keep it off the battlefield and you like lock it out because of commander attacks and stuff, or you imprison it in the moon, it doesn't matter because their deck is like, they probably were trying to speedrun Kalia, so they still got all that ramp. And you know what their deck is? It's just a bunch of scary angels, demons, and dragons anyways. They're just going to be able to play like a normal like stompy deck anyways. So
here's the problem with that though. Kalia's ability gets around casting, so people can't counter it. They have to counter the ability in order for it to stop. It just puts it onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. So the creature is essentially protected at that point.
Okay, so I agree, but like my point is that like the deck still functions. Like it's still like
right. But here's the other thing: you can play all this stuff normally, but you're not going to have 4 lightning greaves on the battlefield to equip to all the stuff that you're playing. Sure. So now you're still having to wait a rotation in order to be able to attack with that stuff. Whereas Kalia gets around all of that.
Yeah, I think I just don't agree. What about you, Preston?
We're allowed to disagree.
Yeah.
I feel like Kalia is much less scary nowadays, but her decks are much scarier nowadays, is how I feel about her at this point.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
I kind of agree with Morgan. You can shut her off and the deck still works, most likely.
The only card that you see before anything gets played is Kalia. And so you see that and you're like, I have to kill this player because they're just going to be way too powerful and they're going to be able to win the game so quickly. I don't know. I still think that this is a really, really strong, really powerful and fast-paced deck most of the time that it gets built. So that's just
it's
just
so
why
scary.
I wanted to talk about it, because I think that it's just still really scary just to see it in the command zone even before the game starts.
Yeah, I agree. But that's what I'm saying. I think her deck is so scary now. You're going to get that hate. I just don't think it's going to be her being on the battlefield specifically that's the problem. Because back when this first came out, you were struggling with some of those creatures you had to fill the deck with. There was a couple really good dragons. The angels and demons sucked. Nowadays, you have some fantastic angels and demons and much better dragons.
Yeah. I think that's what I was gonna say, is just to make sure that point is getting across, is like the 99. Like, I think if you're just looking at the commander, Kalia does not translate as powerful as a lot of newer commanders. But the 99 of a Kalia deck from now is theoretically a lot scarier than the 99 of a Kalia deck from 10 years ago.
A budget Kalia deck nowadays is scarier than a expensive deck used to be for.
Yeah.
With how bad they used to be.
Well, I think that I just kind of have to disagree with what you guys are saying, but I will concede that I will not win you over in this argument at this very moment.
Okay. We all agree that's a scary deck, at least.
So, Preston, why don't you take us through your last card and see how we all feel about this card?
Yeah, so to end it out, my last card is going to be Nyx Bloom Ancient. 4 and 3 green for a 5/5 enchantment creature elemental with trample. If you tap a permanent for mana, it produces 3 times as much of that mana instead. Almost every time I've ever played this card, I've won the game afterwards.
Very hard not to win the game when your mana is tripled.
And it's not restricted.
It's
any of your mana. It's your mana rocks. It's
so many green things are like, oh, you double your lands. This is tripling, and it does everything, which is so much better.
So this obviously is not always true, because a lot of the time, sometimes you just have the setup to go bananas right away. But I think at least a decent amount of time, this plays like Consecrated Sphinx, where it's like, I'm going to tap out, I'm going to play this overwhelmingly powerful card, and if you let it get back to my turn, I'm going to win. I think it's like Consecrated Sphinx a lot of the time. Where this is better than Consecrated Sphinx is some percentage of the time, you're still going to have enough mana and resources left over that you could just kind of pop off now. And maybe you can't win right then and there, but you're going to get more value out of it right away than you would a Consecrated Sphinx. But I think more times than not, it's in the same ballpark of like, you have to kill me or kill this right now before it gets back to my turn.
The thing that I think makes this really, really powerful is the fact that it triples mana, the way that it's worded, because there's a lot of other mana of like effects like that say like, if you would tap this for this mana, add an additional one. So now you stack it so that it adds that additional one, and then it adds 3 times that amount. So you just pair this with one other like mana. I don't want to say mana doubler, because that's not what I'm talking about. It's like doubling mana. It's just you tap, you add an extra one.
Well, that's like what Mirari's Wake. Is that the card that does that? It's like the Anthem that does that?
Yeah.
There's a bunch to do it. Yeah, that's one.
Yeah, like I said, there's a bunch of them that do it, but you pair it with just one of those, and now you could potentially have one land tap for 5 or 6 mana. And so this is definitely one of those cards that it hits the table, and no matter what is happening on anybody else's board, it's like, well, I need to get rid of that immediately. And if you can't get rid of that, you have to get rid of the person that has it. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to stop them, most likely. And even if you do have a way to stop 1 or 2 of the things that they're doing, guess what? They only tapped 2 lands to do whatever it is they're doing. They got 9 more lands to play with. So yeah, I don't hate this card by any means. I don't have one. I really wish I had one, but it's one of the scariest cards that you could possibly play against.
Also, like, because it is tripling the mana from the original source, if there's any special attributes to that mana, all of the other mana you're making is also getting that attributes. Like a Primal Amulet, where you copy the instant and sorcery spell you use the mana on. Each one of those mana gets to do that. Oh,
so you can.
That's disgusting.
Wow. Wow. Ew. Ew, that's gross. Oh, I'm gonna have to try that sometime. Well, that's gonna round out our list. I think we had a really good discussion, fellas. I liked it. I like talking about these cards. Let us know in the comments if you have any other cards that you think would actually be better at killing you or getting you killed. And let us know what you think about the cards that we talked about today. Make sure that you check out our other content. Talk to us about Vegas. Let us know if you're going to be there or not. Yeah, I'm not really good about doing these farewells, but we'll see you guys later. Bye.
Goodbye.
But